So if you follow me on Instagram, you might have recently seen that I added another vintage guitar to the collection. A 1966 Gibson Barney Kessel regular from my favorite store here in Nashville, Carter Vintage Guitars, who by the way has a new, bigger and better location, so if you're ever in the Nashville area, I highly suggest you stop by. So I got this 1966 Barney Kessel regular, and if you didn't already know, I already had another Gibson Barney Kessel. Back in 2017, I bought this 1965 Gibson Barney Kessel Custom, also from Carter Vintage. So why would I get two of the same model guitar? Now at first glance, they do look like the same guitar, but there's some interesting differences, and in this video, I want to talk about them and why I wanted to own two. So a quick history and a little bit of background on these Gibson Barney Kessel models. In the early 60s, Gibson was in talks with some of the biggest names in jazz guitar at the time: Johnny Smith, Tal Farlow, and Barney Kessel. Apparently in 1960, Gibson originally designed this double Florentine cutaway archtop for Tal Farlow. I guess he wasn't too into this design because the signature model that he ended up getting was quite different. But Gibson must have then showed this to Barney Kessel, and instead of designing his own model, he just lent his name to this double Florentine cutaway model. So for all intents and purposes, Barney Kessel had nothing to do with the design of this guitar, and subsequently had really no interest in playing it. There's only a handful of promotional photos with him and the guitar. There's no record of him playing it live that I know of, and in most videos and photos you see of Barney Kessel, he seemed to favor his ES350. There's also been talk about a little bit of friction between Barney Kessel and Gibson around this time, so much so he painted over the Gibson logo on his 350, which by the way is in the hands of another great guitar player now, Bruce Foreman. So basically, Barney Kessel's association with the Gibson Barney Kessel model is in name only. The Barney Kessel regular and custom debuted in 1961, originally priced at around $400 for the regular and $560 for the custom. They weren't really big sellers after peaking in 1968. Gibson eventually discontinued the model in 1974. So let's talk similarities and differences. Both of these mid-60s models feature the same 17-inch wide, 3-inch deep body in a cherry sunburst. The early ones apparently were sprayed a bit darker. Originally, they had a spruce top, but at some point in 1965, they might have had laminated maple tops, maple back and sides, and of course the same double Florentine cutaways, the sharp cutaways, Brazilian rosewood fingerboard, and this oversized Super 400 style headstock. These guitars have patent number humbuckers. They both have the same rosewood tailpiece with the Barney Kessel badge. Now, as far as the differences go, the more expensive custom, of course, is going to be a little bit fancier visually. So the custom has gold hardware and pickup covers, although the plating on mine seems to have partially worn off. The bridges are different. On the regular, we have a rosewood bridge, and on the custom, we have the wire bridge with nylon saddles. Both models have binding on the body, neck, and headstock, but the custom is the only one that has binding on the F-holes as well. The fingerboard inlays are a little bit different too. The regular has double parallelograms, while the custom has these bow tie inlays, because bow ties, of course, are fancier. Also, the back of the necks are a little bit different. The regular has a mahogany neck, while the custom has a three-piece curly maple neck. At least on my Barney Kessel regular, it kind of seems like there was a burst paint job on the back, but it's faded. And on the custom, you can definitely see that the burst paint job is definitely still there. There's a little bit of flame figuring happening, as well as the double striping. Oddly enough, they both have truss rod covers that say custom. On the headstocks, the regular has the simple crown inlay, while the custom has this really ornate note inlay. Tuners are a little bit different too. The custom has gold Grovers, and the regular has vintage Clusons. Feel-wise, they play pretty much exactly the same. The necks feel the same, all the dimensions feel the same. So other than a few cosmetic differences, why did I choose to buy a second one, and the less fancy regular model at that? Well, it really came down to the sound, specifically the pickups and the wiring on the regular. Both of these guitars have amazing neck and bridge position pickup sounds. But the regular has kind of a rare middle pickup position sound, one of my favorites, which is that out of phase tone that you hear in a lot of classic blues players like T-Bone Walker and like Peter Green. And it's a sound that I've been in love with for many, many years. And anytime I find a guitar that has that, I'm instantly hooked. And they're not all the same either. A lot of times the out of phase sound can sound a little bit thin or weak or low in volume. But with this one, I discovered the perfect sound. So if I'm in the middle position and everything is all the way up, it's a little bit thin. But if I roll back the treble volume knob just a hair, and you can hear the difference, right around 9.5. So I actually have the BK Custom set up as my quote-unquote jazz guitar. I put on some Tomastic Infeld George Benson strings, and these are flat wound, really heavy gauge. I believe they are 14 to 55. And for the regular, I set up as my blues guitar with D'Addario pure nickel strings. These are round wounds, and I think these are 11 to 48. So I got my jazz BK and I got my blues BK. I have the best of both worlds now. But I do really think that these Barney Kessels are quite underrated for not only the value, but just being overall like a really good, you know, a hollow body jazz guitar, even though you can play rock, blues, anything on these guitars. All right, guys, I hope you learned a little bit more about the Gibson Barney Kessel. If you enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up, share it with your family and friends. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, gear demos or guitar lessons, click that subscribe button. I'm RJ Ronquillo, and I'll see you in the next video.